I'd first like to reach out and say thank you to all the guys out on the Facebook community, in the Mustang owners group, the Boss 302 and GT350 owners group. You guys have been tremendous. Appreciate all the support. Thank you so much. So, what's going on this week? Well, last weekend when I started this whole thing, we got a mad rush to get all the footage done, running around trying to get all those shots I needed to get that quick first little video to kind of tell you guys, kind of encapsulate what this is all going to be about. After that, I had to actually pack everything up and run over to go see my good friends over at Mopac, where we decided to dyno the car. We want to see what this car can put down stock, figure out what the kind of numbers they are, and my friend who owns a GT 500, he's planning some big mods for that car, and we wanted to get a baseline dyno for his car as well, just to kind of see where his car is at, which is also stock, before he starts putting all those mods on. So it actually turned out, the first run, just like I kind of anticipated the car would make. Here it is. After that run, we kind of thought, you know what? Yeah, that's right about what this car should be making. But I literally drove from my house straight to Mopac. We let it cool down for about maybe 10-15 minutes, and then we threw it on the dyno. And it's a Mustang dyno, so it's a chassis driven. It adds rolling resistance, so they are pretty accurate to what the car is going to lay down on the actual road, and it's great for tuning as well. So the car in that video laid down 374 horsepower. No big deal. Pretty much what a regular Boss 302 should lay down. But we decided, you know what? The car was really hot. Let's let it cool down. Once again, nothing. We didn't change anything on the car. We just simply let it cool down. Fired it up, let it run for like a minute or two, and then we decided to do the next pull, which was this one. I couldn't believe Nick's look on his face. I looked at him and I said, hey Nick, like, what did it do? He's like, 392. Both of us were shocked. 392 horsepower means it's making about 467 at the crank in this car, stock. I mean, it has a cold air intake on it. We all know that doesn't really do anything. I put MSD ignition coils on it just because I thought the car was running a little rough when I got it. You know, low mileage, hasn't really been driven. I thought the coils might be bad. Good opportunity. I pulled the spark plugs. You know, they're 3 years old at that point when I bought the car, and they had hardly been used. 6,000 kilometers on the car. So I thought, you know what, let's just change them. I don't really, think that made a huge difference in power-wise. I mean, the first number was 374, so just like a stock car would make. Just shocked at, once you get this thing cooled down a little bit, how much power that made. So after that last impressive dyno pull, it begs the question, do we tune this car? Do we do anything to it? Do we leave it relatively stock? My biggest concern, and the thing that makes me really question whether or not to do it, is the fact that I have the red track key, and it is apparently no longer available. If you want to get this done to your Boss 302 or even your Mustang GT, I've been told Ford says they can't do it anymore. And I've called SCT to ask them about tuning this car, and the representative told me that unfortunately I would have to remove the track key in order to tune the car. So then that makes me question, do I want to tune this car and lose the track key? It's going to hurt the resale value ultimately, but the real question is, do I care? Do I really care? Do I save that for the next owner, or do I do what I want to do with the car? I don't know yet. Nick was just dying to stick a tuner on this thing because in his opinion, we could get close to 450 horsepower to the tires in this car with very, very, very little modifications done, if any at all. When we looked at the air-fuel ratios on that last run, typical to what this car does is it adds a whole bunch of extra fuel at the higher RPM range to cool down the catalytic converters so you don't blow them out. If you trim that back a little bit, you would see that the power would just continue to climb, and the trajectory that it was on, I don't know, it could be close. My guess would have been more like 425 just on a tune, without really opening her up and getting her to breathe a little bit better. Once again, guys, completely stock exhaust system, with the exception of removing the side restrictor plates out. Nothing else has changed on it. And that was pretty much the weekend. Throughout the week, just driving it. Nothing eventful. Car drives great. It's a lot thirstier than my last car was. This was, you know, before this whole thing started, this was my weekend kind of fun car, and my regular daily driver was a 2015 Focus ST. Great car, awesome car, loved it. Just didn't excite me as much as this car did, and I felt like I've got two kind of fast, sporty cars, but you know, one's a great daily driver commuter, which it was awesome. It did like one tank of gas would last a week, perfect, no problems. Both cars run 94 octane, so you know, relatively similar fuel cost in that sense. It's just this thing goes through like a tank and a half a week. Something I'll get used to. Not complaining at all. Now let's talk about changing your own oil, guys. I have my opinions on it, and I'm going to share them with you now. If you have the ability to do any very basic maintenance on your own car, do it. The main reason I suggest that is it gets you familiar with your car, and you see firsthand if any issues are coming up. Now, changing an oil, doing an oil change in a car is not that hard, but it allows you to get underneath the car, familiarize yourself with what's going on under the car, and see if there's anything that might need to be addressed. Now, you could definitely bring that to your mechanic, and your mechanic's going to appreciate that, given the fact that you're pointing out something that you noticed on the car, and you're just asking for his advice. Does that look like something that needs to be addressed now? You know, what is this? Why is this weeping? Why is there a little bit of moisture here? Is that an oil leak? Hey, this doesn't look right. All those sorts of things you'll notice by just getting underneath your car, looking at your suspension. Does something look like you went over a speed bump too hard and you hit something? Or does something look like it's torn a boot and you now have grease kind of coming out of it, like a ball joint? It needs to be replaced. I'm not advocating that you need to know how to do that yourself, but if you're at least looking underneath your car, you know, once every 3 months doing an oil change, you're going to get a better understanding of what maybe needs to be done to the car and what you need to show your mechanic. And that's really been it, guys. The week went really well. Hopefully next week will be even better. We'll see. It's going to be hard to keep up that pace, but there's been a couple of cars and coffee events, kind of things like that in the evenings. There was a Friday night street legal. Just the weather hasn't really agreed with us yet. It is still spring, so hopefully that's going to improve. We can get out to a couple of those events, kind of meet a bunch of interesting people, and go from there. So see you guys next week. Fun part is we just pulled into this park, Campbell Valley, just to kind of get set up before we start driving off, and the RCMP are doing a little radar trap, so this should be interesting as I drive right past the member as she's staring into my car with cameras on. Let's see what she has to say about that. Hopefully nothing. Should be you know, bright red car coming through, don't mind me, don't worry about the cameras. I'm not speeding, officer.